The CEO had a very special little boy, adorable, clever, and with one rather dangerous habit. Whenever he was upset, he would bite his father's leg. That day, a man had just picked up the boy from kindergarten when several men in black suddenly appeared, forcing him into a car. As a struggling D-list actor, Vivian racked his brain but couldn't think of anyone he might have offended. Moments later, the car stopped in front of a grand mansion. Both he and the little boy were unceremoniously pushed inside. Still dazed and confused, Vivian barely registered the polite voice of a woman approaching them. "Mr. Vivian, this way, please." Inside, a cold, unfamiliar man sat waiting. Vivian frowned. He had never seen this man before. Then the man spoke, his tone low and commanding. "The child in your arms is my biological son. This is a token of gratitude. Please return him to me. If it's not enough, I can pay 10 times the amount." Vivian glared, slammed his own bank card on the table, and snapped, "Here's 50,000. Considerate payment for this little kidnapping stunt." The boy in his arms, Peter, refused to back down. He reached into his pocket and tossed all his candies onto the table beside the card, his tiny face stubborn and defiant, as if joining the bidding war. The room fell into an awkward silence. The CEO's secretary leaned in and whispered, "Sir, perhaps you should check the amount on the check first." Vivian gave him a look that screamed idiot. "If you're going to lie, at least make up something believable." The CEO, David, gestured for the secretary to bring the documents. The paternity test clearly showed. The man and the child shared the same DNA. Vivian, however, refused to believe it. Years ago, when he'd undergone in vitro fertilization overseas, the entire process had been strictly supervised and legally certified. This boy had to be his biological son. David's patience ran out. "Take them away." The guards closed in immediately. Vivian was lifted off the floor, struggling and shouting in protest. Meanwhile, Peter, held by another guard, saw his Papa Vivian being taken away and burst into tears, thrashing wildly to break free. The guards didn't dare use force on the young master, so they could only form a loose circle to contain him. Between sobs, Peter's eyes darted toward David. He remembered what his papa once taught him. To catch the thief, go for the leader. So he crawled toward the big bad boss. David pretended not to notice, curious to see what the child would do. The next second, the little boy grabbed his pant leg and bit down hard. "Bad man, I'll bite you to death," he mumbled between bites. It was the first time David had ever experienced such a bizarre kidnapping, one where the culprits didn't want ransom, only his child, and then decided they didn't even want him anymore. Later that evening, David had planned to bring Peter home, but his secretary rushed in. "Sir, the second master has spoken ill of you before the old master. He's demanding your presence immediately." David's eyes drifted toward Peter. His uncle had always envied his position as the heir of the main family. If he learned that David had a son, the boy could be in danger. So he decided to leave Peter temporarily in Vivian's care, secretly assigning guards to watch over them. Meanwhile, Vivian refused to let go of the mansion's doorframe. The bodyguards had no choice. They removed the entire door and carried him out, still clinging to it. As he was hauled away, he spotted Peter being carried out too. Moments later, both of them, one tall, one small, were thrown out of the grand gate. Vivian stared at the child and sighed. "Peter, were we dreaming just now?" Peter wiped his tears. "Yeah, I dreamed of a big bad man." Dream or not, Vivian knew one thing for sure. He would never abandon Peter. Back at the family estate, the old master slammed his cup down. "I heard you went after your brother's men? You just took over as head of the family and you're already throwing your weight around?" David replied calmly. "He went after my son first. I only defended him." The old master nearly choked on his tea. "You have a son? How old? Who's the mother?" "Almost 4, David said evenly. The old man sputtered again, this time spraying tea across the table. "I've told you since childhood. The bloodline of the first heir is sacred. How could you treat it so lightly?" He yanked down his collar, revealing a unique birthmark on his right shoulder. This mark only appears on the eldest son of each generation, only one per line. David stayed silent. He had that same mark. What he didn't know was that little Peter had it too. The old master's eyes narrowed. You're certain that child is truly yours? David handed him Peter's photo. The old man frowned. A mixed blood child? He doesn't look like you. It was an IVF procedure 5 years ago, David explained. The donor was a foreign woman. The old master fell silent, recalling the mysterious events of that year. Still, what mattered most now was the boy. Don't worry too much, he said. I doubt your brother would harm a child. David said nothing, but his mind flashed with images of blood. I'm just being cautious, he murmured. Moments later, his secretary called. Sir, Mr. Vivian took the young master to the film set. David glanced at his watch. At this hour? At the film set, Vivian held a sleeping Peter, urging the driver to go faster. No one knew that this little boy would soon save his life. They arrived just before the deadline, midnight. The notoriously short-tempered director scowled when he saw Vivian bring a child. Vivian endured the scolding in silence, nodding and apologizing until the man finally cooled down. The director waved him off. Put the kid down and get to work. A staff member gently placed Peter on a soft couch. But as the boy slept, his face grew pale. In his dream, he saw Vivian collapse to the ground, surrounded by shoes and blood. Terrified, Peter jolted awake, screaming, "Papa!" and ran out. At that exact moment, across the city, David's heart clenched painfully. The old master also felt a sudden unease. Deep in the mountains, the reclusive great-grandfather trembled slightly. So, the child from the prophecy has finally appeared, he whispered. Back on set, Vivian was performing a wire stunt. Hearing Peter's scream, he faltered, and his midair posture immediately went wrong. Vivian! What are you doing? Cut! Do it again! The director yelled. Vivian bowed apologetically, promising to fix it next take. But Peter had already run onto the set, tears streaming down his face. Seeing Vivian safe, he stopped crying. But the costume he wore matched the one in his nightmare. Papa, no! Don't go up there! Vivian was being hoisted by the cable when Peter clung to his leg. Peter, don't let go, Vivian shouted as both of them were lifted off the ground. Lower them down now, the director bellowed. They landed roughly. Vivian held his sobbing son tightly. I want to go home, Peter cried. I'm scared. Vivian comforted him gently, though confusion stirred in his heart. Peter rarely cried. The assistant director spoke up. Let's have a stunt double handle it. Vivian, take a break. Grateful, Vivian carried Peter back to the rest area. He asked softly, Why did you run onto the set, sweetheart? Peter gripped his hand. I was scared you wouldn't come back. Vivian's chest tightened. He hugged the boy close. I'll never leave you, I promise. Then, a crash outside. Vivian rushed out and froze. The stunt double was lying motionless, blood pooling around him. The furious director shouted, scolding everyone, and even pointed at Peter. Vivian shielded Peter's eyes, but through his fingers the boy caught a glimpse. A faint black mist rising from the fallen man's body before it vanished. When the medics failed to appear, Vivian stepped forward. I know first aid. Let me help. But with no one to watch Peter, he had to leave him nearby. Stay here. Don't move, he said. Yet the moment he turned, Peter saw that same black mist slip into his father's body. Panicking, he ran forward, stumbling, shouting, Papa! It's dangerous. He tripped, crashing into a staff member. Before he could get up, the enraged director grabbed him by the collar. You little brat! That's enough. A cold voice cut through the chaos. David stepped in, gripping the director's wrist until the man cried out in pain. His secretary swept Peter into her arms while the guards restrained the director. Take the boy to the car, David ordered, wiping his hand with a tissue. But Peter struggled. No! I have to save Papa. David sighed and picked him up himself. Under the pull of blood connection, Peter quieted but whispered stubbornly, I want to find him. David's gaze softened. All right, we'll find him. Then you're coming home with me. As soon as Peter was set down, he darted straight to Vivian, clinging tightly around his neck. Vivian looked up and froze. David was standing there. You? He blurted. Why are you here? Because if I hadn't come, my son would have been terrified to death, Peter pouted. The director tried to hit me. Vivian's temper flared. He turned and kicked the director hard. I quit, he said it boldly, until he glanced back and saw David. His bravado vanished instantly. Minutes later, both father and son found themselves invited back to the CEO's mansion. On the way, Vivian protested, I'm taking him home. David replied coolly, You think a 3-year-old belongs on a chaotic film set at 3 in the morning? What right do you have to raise him? Vivian had no answer. Remembering tonight's chaos, he fell silent. After cleaning up, he returned to find Peter awake, whining, Papa, hug me. Vivian hurried over, lifting him gently. But when Peter's small hand brushed his chest, he frowned, remembering the black mist from earlier. Vivian thought he just wanted to play and laughed, tossing him lightly into the air. That's when David and the family doctor entered, and froze at the sight. David's face darkened. It's late. You're playing games now? He moved to pick Peter up, but the boy clung to Vivian, refusing to let go. In the tug of war that followed, Vivian's hair got caught and ripped. He fell backward onto the bed, nearly pulling David down with him. Their faces ended up just inches apart. David quickly turned away, draped a jacket over him, and muttered, The boy's hand is injured. Treat it. Vivian checked. Indeed, Peter's palm was scraped. He carefully applied ointment, blowing softly on the wound until the boy giggled. David watched quietly. For the first time, he saw his son smile so freely with someone else. A strange warmth, and perhaps a hint of jealousy, stirred in his chest. When it was done, Vivian said gently, Next time you're hurt, tell your dad right away, okay? Peter nodded seriously. But Papa, you're hurt too. I saw it. Vivian laughed, thinking he meant he smelled sweaty. No, Papa's clean and nice smelling. But Peter shook his head. In my dream, you were bleeding. A lot. Vivian smiled and stroked his hair. Just a nightmare, baby. Go to sleep. That night, as the boy drifted off, Vivian sat by the bed, guilt and worry churning in his heart. He shouldn't have brought Peter to the set. When he finally dozed off, Peter's eyes opened again. In the moonlight, the black mist was gone from his father's body, but the unease in the child's gaze remained.